Amina was a quiet girl who often went unnoticed in her school. She came from a very poor family, and her life had always been full of struggles. Every morning, she woke up before dawn to help her mother with household chores. Her small house had only 2 rooms, one for the family to sleep in, and another tiny kitchen where she learned to cook simple meals. Despite the hardships, Amina always carried herself with a kind and gentle smile. She never complained, even when things were hard, and she always tried to help her younger brother with his schoolwork before rushing to get ready for her own classes. Amina's clothes were never new, and most of her classmates noticed the worn-out patches on her dresses. She had a small pair of shoes that were almost too tight, but she wore them with pride because it was all she had. Sometimes, other children would laugh at her because of her simple appearance, calling her names or teasing her quietly when the teachers were not looking. But Amina rarely responded to their mockery. She had learned early on that fighting back with words only brought more trouble. Instead, she focused on staying quiet and doing her best in school. Despite being poor, Amina had something that no one else could see immediately: a deep love for singing. She discovered her passion when she was very little. Whenever she did her chores or walked to school, she would hum tunes she heard on the radio or songs her mother used to sing. Her voice had a sweetness to it that could make anyone stop and listen if they were lucky enough to hear it. However, Amina never sang in front of anyone except her family. She felt shy and worried that people would laugh at her or make fun of her, so her talent remained a secret, tucked away like a precious treasure she didn't yet dare to show the world. At school, Amina was known for her quiet nature. She wasn't part of the popular groups, nor did she try to be. She sat at the back of the classroom, often doodling in her notebook when she wasn't writing down lessons. Teachers saw her as a polite student who did her work but didn't stand out in any other way. Some classmates didn't even know her name properly, and those who did sometimes assumed she was just another quiet girl who had nothing special about her. Only a few close friends noticed her gentle kindness and willingness to help anyone in need. Whenever someone forgot their homework or needed a hand with a school task, Amina was always ready to step in quietly and assist without expecting praise. Her days were not easy. She had to walk long distances to school because her family could not afford a bus fare. Rain or shine, she wore the same simple dress and shoes, often feeling cold in winter or hot in the summer sun. But Amina never complained. Instead, she told herself that school was important and that education could one day help her family have a better life. She worked hard in her classes, not because she wanted recognition, but because she genuinely loved learning. Math, science, and reading were all opportunities to explore the world beyond her small village and limited resources. Even though Amina kept to herself most of the time, her heart was full of dreams. She imagined one day singing on a stage in front of many people, where her voice could bring joy and emotion to everyone who heard it. She pictured herself in a beautiful dress, performing confidently without fear or hesitation. At night, when the house was silent and her family asleep, she would practice softly in her room, letting the music flow from her soul. She dreamed of a life where people would see her for who she really was, not for the worn-out clothes she wore or the small, humble house she lived in. Unfortunately, not everyone at school was kind. Some students were quick to judge and slow to understand. They teased her about small things, like the way she spoke or the food she ate for lunch. Sometimes, they left hurtful notes in her desk or whispered mean comments as she passed by. Amina tried to ignore them, but it was not always easy. She would feel a tight knot in her chest and a heavy weight on her shoulders. Yet, even in those moments, she refused to let the teasing destroy her spirit. She reminded herself that their words did not define her. What mattered most was who she was inside, someone with a beautiful heart and a gift waiting to be shared. Amina's family was another source of strength for her. Her mother worked hard as a cleaner, taking on jobs wherever she could to provide for the children. Her father had passed away when Amina was very young, leaving her mother to manage everything alone. Though money was scarce, her mother always encouraged her children to study and to pursue their passions. She had noticed Amina's love for singing and often encouraged her to sing at home, even if it was just for the family. Her younger brother loved to listen, and would clap excitedly whenever Amina sang. These small moments of encouragement kept her hope alive, reminding her that her voice was special and that one day she might have the courage to share it with the world. One particular day, the school principal announced that there would be a talent show. Students were buzzing with excitement, talking about what they would perform. Some were planning dances, others magic tricks, and a few were even preparing jokes and skits. Amina's classmates immediately started whispering about her. A few of the more popular students, noticing her quiet demeanor, thought it would be funny if she tried to sing. They laughed behind their hands and made casual comments, expecting her to fail. Amina heard the whispers, but she tried to ignore them, focusing on her studies and telling herself that the talent show was not something she needed to participate in if she didn't want to. Even though she felt nervous, a small spark of excitement grew inside her. Part of her wondered what it would be like to finally sing in front of others. Could her voice really be as beautiful as she imagined? Could it surprise everyone who had underestimated her? The idea both terrified and thrilled her. She spent nights thinking about it, imagining the moment she would step onto the stage and quietly practicing songs in her room. Her voice soft but full of emotion. Her heart raced with hope and fear at the same time. Despite all the challenges in her life, the teasing, the poverty, the fear of standing out, Amina held onto a quiet strength. She knew that her talent was part of who she was. And deep down, she hoped that one day, it could change her life in ways she could never imagine. She had no idea how soon that day would come, or how the world around her would react, but one thing was certain. Her love for singing was stronger than any fear, and her voice, though hidden until now, was ready to be heard. The morning of the school talent show arrived, and the hallways were buzzing with excitement. Posters announcing the event were taped to the walls, colorful and bright, and students could hardly wait to show their skills. Some practiced in groups, whispering and laughing as they perfected their routines. Others rehearsed alone, nervously repeating lines or notes until they felt ready. The air was filled with a mix of anticipation, nervousness, and laughter, the kind that only school events could bring. Amina walked to school that morning with her usual quiet steps. She carried her small backpack, worn at the corners, and felt a mixture of emotions she could barely name. Excitement and fear tangled together in her chest like a knot she couldn't undo. She had thought carefully about whether she would participate, but the teasing comments from a few classmates had made her hesitate. They had jokingly suggested she sing, laughing behind their hands and nudging each other as if they had just hatched a clever prank. Amina had heard the whispers but tried to pretend they didn't exist. Deep down, however, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she could show them that their assumptions were wrong. In the classroom, the more popular students gathered in groups, giggling and planning their performances. Some of them were confident, practicing jokes or dance steps. Others tried to hum a tune quietly, hoping not to be noticed if they made a mistake. Amina took a seat near the back, quietly observing the room. She watched as her classmates practiced their acts, some joking with each other, some focused entirely on their own performances. Her heart beat faster as the teacher called everyone's attention to the schedule of the talent show. When the schedule was announced, the whispering began again. A few students leaned over to each other, pointing at Amina with smirks on their faces. "I wonder if she's going to sing," one said, whispering so only his friends could hear. "It'll be hilarious if she tries," another added, stifling a laugh. Amina felt a cold shiver run down her spine, but she kept her eyes down, pretending not to hear. She told herself to stay calm. She had practiced quietly at home, and she knew her voice was good, but what if the whole room laughed? What if they made fun of her in front of everyone? Despite the fear, a small voice inside her encouraged her to take the stage. She remembered her mother's words. "Your voice is a gift, Amina. One day, people will hear it, and they will be amazed." Her younger brother's excitement when she sang at home came to mind as well. He had always clapped and smiled, saying her voice made him feel happy. Those memories gave her courage, and slowly, she decided that she would not let fear stop her. She would sing, not to prove anything to the others, but because it was part of who she was. When the time for her performance approached, Amina's hands trembled slightly. She sat backstage, listening to other students perform. The hall was filled with laughter and applause for the acts that had gone before. A dance group twirled and leaped across the stage, their synchronized movements earning loud cheers. A few students tried magic tricks, causing gasps and giggles from the audience. Each performance seemed to raise the tension in Amina's chest. She felt small, nervous, and very aware of all eyes that would soon turn to her. Finally, the teacher announced, "Next, we have Amina performing a song for us." There was a brief pause in the audience. Some students snickered quietly, others whispered to each other, wondering what she would do. Amina took a deep breath and slowly walked toward the stage. Every step felt heavy, and yet, she held her head high, trying to remember that this was her moment. The bright stage lights made her squint, and the hall suddenly seemed enormous. But she focused on a single thought. She was going to sing. As she reached the microphone, her knees felt weak, and her hands shook slightly. She looked out at the audience and noticed the mixture of faces, some curious, some skeptical, and some openly mocking. Her heart pounded, but she took another deep breath. She remembered the quiet evenings at home, singing softly while her family listened. She remembered the warmth in her mother's eyes and the joy in her brother's face. That memory gave her a spark of courage, and she whispered to herself, "I can do this." When she started singing, it began softly, almost like a gentle hum. Her voice trembled at first, unsure of itself, but slowly it grew stronger. The first notes carried through the hall, and something magical happened. The laughter and whispers that had filled the room began to fade. People turned their heads, curious. Her voice was different from what anyone expected. It was pure, clear, and full of emotion. The sound seemed to fill the air, wrapping around every listener, demanding attention. As Amina continued, she closed her eyes, letting herself feel the music instead of worrying about the audience. Each note flowed naturally, rising and falling with perfect control. Her voice had a warmth that made the listeners forget to breathe for a moment. The more she sang, the more confident she became. Her hands stopped shaking, her knees felt strong, and she stood tall, moving with the rhythm without even thinking. The room that had been full of laughter and teasing moments before now sat in stunned silence. Teachers, students, and even some parents in the audience could not believe what they were hearing. Some of the classmates who had whispered and snickered before now exchanged shocked glances. They had expected a joke, a mistake, or a voice that would falter, but instead, they were hearing something extraordinary. Amina's singing was not just good, it was breathtaking. The melody carried emotion, a combination of joy and sadness, hope and strength. It was as if the tiny, quiet girl they had overlooked had suddenly transformed the entire room with her voice. By the middle of the song, everyone was completely absorbed. Even those who had been planning to tease her could no longer find words. Their mouths were open in surprise, their eyes wide, and some even had tears forming, moved by the beauty of her singing. The teachers, who had seen hundreds of performances over the years, whispered to each other in astonishment. They could not believe that someone so quiet and unassuming could have such talent. Amina had captured not just their ears but their hearts. When the final note rang out, there was a brief, stunned silence. No one moved. No one spoke, as if the room itself needed a moment to process what had just happened. Then, slowly, the audience erupted into applause. The sound was loud and overwhelming, filling the hall with cheers, clapping, and whistles. Students jumped to their feet, some shouting her name, while others could barely catch their breath from amazement. Amina stood frozen for a moment, feeling a mixture of relief and disbelief. She had done it. She had sung, and her voice had silenced the room not with fear, but with awe. After she stepped off the stage, some students ran up to her, eyes wide with admiration. "That was amazing," one whispered. "I didn't know you could sing like that," said another. Even some of the classmates who had planned the joke approached her cautiously, their faces red with embarrassment. I didn't think you could do that," one admitted softly. Amina smiled quietly, feeling a warmth inside that she had never experienced before. She realized that her voice had a power she had only dreamed about, and that for the first time, people were seeing her for who she really was. The teachers also praised her performance, and one of them even suggested that she consider joining the school choir or taking music lessons to develop her talent further. Amina felt a spark of hope ignite inside her. She had always been afraid that her dreams were too big, that her background would hold her back. But in that moment, she realized that talent and courage could shine through any obstacles. She had faced her fear, and the result was something magical. By the end of the day, the story of Amina's singing had spread throughout the school. Students who had ignored or teased her before now looked at her with respect. She walked home that afternoon with a lightness in her step, her heart full of pride and excitement. She thought about the future, imagining other songs she could sing and other stages she could perform on. The memory of the audience's silence and applause stayed with her, reminding her that she was capable of incredible things if she dared to try. Amina's day had begun like any other, quiet and unassuming, but it ended with a new realization. She had discovered that courage and passion could overcome fear, and that sometimes the world had hidden surprises for those who believed in themselves. The girl who had once been overlooked and underestimated had finally been heard, and the sound of her voice would never be forgotten. The moment Amina's first note filled the hall, a strange hush fell over everyone. It was as if time itself had paused to listen. Students who had been chatting, whispering, and snickering just moments before were now sitting upright, their eyes wide in astonishment. Teachers who had seen countless performances over the years exchanged glances, their eyebrows raised in surprise. No one expected the quiet, poor girl at the back of the class to have such a voice. The soft, pure tone carried through the room, like sunlight breaking through clouds, warm, clear, and impossible to ignore. Amina closed her eyes as she continued to sing, letting herself be carried by the melody. The nervousness that had gripped her when she first stepped onto the stage began to melt away. Her hands, which had been trembling just seconds before, now moved gracefully as she expressed the emotion behind each word. Every note she sang felt like it came straight from her heart, full of honesty and vulnerability. She no longer thought about the audience's whispers, the laughter she feared, or the classmates who had joked about her. For the first time, she was entirely in her own world, completely lost in the music. The hall that had been buzzing with energy moments before was now transformed. Even the students who had planned the cruel joke were frozen in their seats. Their smirks had vanished, replaced with shock and awe. One student leaned forward, his mouth slightly open, unable to believe that the small, quiet girl in front of them could sing like this. The sound of Amina's voice was so unexpected, so pure and powerful, that it seemed to reach every corner of the room. The notes wrapped around the listeners, touching something deep inside them that words could not describe. Amina sang with emotion, each phrase carefully crafted, yet completely natural. Her voice had a gentle warmth that made people feel calm, but it also carried a strength that demanded attention. The hall seemed to grow smaller as her song filled every inch of space. Students who had been fidgeting or whispering now sat completely still, mesmerized. The teachers, who had been evaluating the performances critically, could not help but smile. Even the principal, who was known for being stern and serious, leaned forward in his chair, clearly moved by what he was hearing. As the song progressed, Amina's confidence grew. She had imagined this moment countless times in her mind, practicing quietly in her room, but now that it was real, it felt even more incredible than she had hoped. Each note she sang seemed to soar higher, carrying her feelings across the room. She no longer thought about fear or embarrassment. She only thought about the music, about sharing her gift with others. The nervous little girl who had walked onto the stage moments ago had disappeared, replaced by someone completely alive and present in her own talent. The students' reactions were extraordinary. Some covered their mouths in surprise, unable to speak. Others had tears in their eyes, moved by the beauty and emotion of her singing. A few whispered to each other, "I didn't know she could sing like this. And this is amazing." Even the classmates who had made fun of her earlier now sat in stunned silence, realizing they had underestimated her completely. The realization that someone so quiet and unassuming could hold such power in her voice left them speechless. Amina's voice had a way of telling a story without words, expressing emotions that could not be captured in ordinary conversation. It was as though every hardship she had ever faced, every quiet moment she had spent practicing alone, had been poured into this performance. The audience could feel the sincerity in her voice, the struggles she had overcome, and the hope she carried for her future. The song was no longer just a performance, it was a window into Amina's soul, revealing the depth and beauty of a life that few had truly noticed before. Even the teachers were impressed beyond measure. One music teacher, who had been observing from the side, whispered to a colleague, "She has a natural gift. This is more than talent. It's extraordinary." Another teacher shook her head in amazement, clearly moved by the way Amina held the entire room captive. The principal, who was known for rarely showing emotion, sat forward in his seat, clapping quietly as the song continued. The room that had been full of chatter and casual expectations was now completely silent, every listener hanging on to every note, every word. Amina's classmates began to forget the joke they had planned. Their laughter and teasing disappeared completely, replaced by awe and admiration. Some of the students who had whispered unkind comments moments before now stared in disbelief. They had assumed that Amina's quiet nature meant she was unremarkable, but her voice proved them wrong in the most beautiful way. The lesson was clear. Talent and courage could come from the most unexpected places, and judging someone by appearances alone could be a mistake. As Amina reached the middle of her song, her voice seemed to grow even stronger, yet remained gentle and pure. Every note she sang carried emotion and grace. The audience could feel the story in her music, as if each phrase was telling a tale of her life, her struggles, and her dreams. The quiet girl who had walked unnoticed through the halls was now the center of attention, not because she sought it, but because her talent demanded recognition. Even the students who had been skeptical found themselves holding their breath, captivated by her extraordinary performance. Her confidence soared as she sang. She no longer felt fear or doubt. Instead, she felt an overwhelming sense of freedom. She had faced the possibility of embarrassment, and now she was showing everyone who she truly was. The room that had been ready to mock her only minutes ago was now completely silent, each listener hanging on to her every note. Amina realized that this was not just about the talent show, it was about showing the world that her voice, and by extension herself, mattered. She felt proud. Not because she had silenced the room, but because she had finally expressed herself fully, without fear. As the final notes approached, the tension in the hall was palpable. Every listener felt the power of her voice, the emotion in every phrase, and the courage it had taken to stand on that stage. Amina sang with everything she had, letting her emotions flow naturally. When the last note rang out, it lingered in the air, leaving a sense of wonder and awe. For a few moments, no one moved, no one clapped. It was as if the audience needed a moment to process what they had just experienced. Then, slowly, the room erupted in applause. It started with a few students clapping hesitantly, unsure what to do, and then grew into a thunderous ovation that shook the hall. Some students jumped to their feet, cheering and shouting Amina's name. The teachers clapped proudly, smiling and nodding in appreciation. The principal gave a rare, wide smile and stood to join in the applause. Amina, who had been standing with her eyes closed, felt a rush of emotion she had never experienced before. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she smiled, knowing that she had shared her gift in the most genuine way possible. After stepping off the stage, Amina felt a mixture of relief and excitement. Her classmates came up to her, some with wide smiles and others with slightly embarrassed expressions. "That was amazing," one whispered. "I didn't know you could sing like that," said another. Even the students who had tried to make fun of her approached cautiously, saying, I'm sorry. I didn't know you could do this." Amina smiled softly, feeling a warmth in her heart. She knew that her voice had changed not only the audience's perception of her but also her own perception of herself. The teachers continued to praise her, and one suggested she considered joining the school choir or taking formal music lessons. Amina felt a spark of hope ignite inside her. She had always loved singing, but now she saw that her talent could open doors she had never imagined. Her fear of performing in front of others had been replaced by a growing confidence and a sense of purpose. She realized that talent, combined with courage and determination, could create extraordinary moments, even in the face of doubt and ridicule. By the time Amina left school that day, the story of her performance had spread throughout the school. Students who had once overlooked her now looked at her with respect. Teachers praised her talent and dedication. Even her classmates who had been cruel moments before now recognized her for who she truly was, a talented, courageous, and remarkable young girl. Amina walked home with a light step, her heart full of pride, excitement, and a renewed sense of possibility. She thought about the future, imagining other songs she could sing and other stages she might perform on. She knew that her life had changed that day, and that her voice had the power to touch hearts and inspire others in ways she had never dreamed of. Amina realized that her first performance was only the beginning. It had taught her an important lesson. Fear and doubt may always exist, but courage and passion could overcome them. By stepping onto the stage and singing from her heart, she had discovered a strength within herself that she had never known before. And as she walked home, she held her head high, knowing that this was just the start of a journey that could take her anywhere she dared to dream. After her unforgettable performance at the talent show, Amina's life began to change in ways she could never have imagined. The quiet, unassuming girl who had often gone unnoticed at school was suddenly the center of attention. Students who had once ignored her now approached her with smiles and curiosity. Even the teachers, who had always been aware of her politeness but not her talents, now seemed eager to encourage her. Amina walked through the school hallways feeling a strange mix of pride, excitement, and nervousness. She still felt shy, but the applause and recognition from the talent show gave her a new confidence she had never experienced before. The following day at school, students gathered in small groups, talking about Amina's performance in hushed tones. "Did you hear her sing yesterday?" one whispered. "Her voice. It's incredible. I never expected that from her," another said. Even some of the classmates who had been cruel or teasing before now looked at her differently. They realized that she had a hidden talent that none of them had imagined. Some came forward to apologize for their previous behavior, admitting they had underestimated her. Amina, ever polite and kind, accepted their apologies with a gentle smile. She didn't hold grudges. She understood that people sometimes judge too quickly, and that kindness could change perceptions more than anger ever could. The teachers, too, were impressed. One of them, a music teacher named Mrs. Karim, approached Amina after class. "Amina," she said softly, "I was amazed by your performance yesterday. You have a natural gift. Have you ever thought about taking formal singing lessons or joining the school choir?" Amina's heart leapt. She had always dreamed of singing in front of others, but the idea of formal training or joining a group had seemed impossible because of her family's financial situation. Now, Mrs. Karim's words made it seem achievable. She nodded shyly, saying, I would like that very much." Mrs. Karim smiled and promised to help her find opportunities to develop her talent. Word of Amina's performance spread beyond her school. Some local newspapers and community members had heard about the talent show, and a few came to speak to her. They wanted to know more about the quiet girl whose voice had stunned everyone. Amina felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she shared her story. She spoke humbly, explaining that she had always loved singing and that she had practiced in her room at home. People were amazed that such a remarkable talent had come from a humble background, and they began to offer encouragement and support. For Amina, it was a powerful reminder that even small beginnings could lead to extraordinary opportunities. At home, her family was overjoyed. Her mother hugged her tightly, tears of pride in her eyes. "I always knew you had something special, Amina," she said. "Now everyone else can see it too." Her younger brother jumped up and down excitedly, repeating, "You were amazing. I told everyone you could do it." The encouragement from her family filled her heart with warmth and determination. Amina realized that her gift was not just hers alone. It was a part of her family's dreams and hopes as well. Their support gave her the strength to keep going, to face new challenges, and to pursue her passion despite the difficulties they still faced in daily life. With the support of her teachers and family, Amina began to practice more seriously. Mrs. Karim introduced her to techniques for improving her voice, teaching her how to control her breathing, use her diaphragm, and project her sound with confidence. Amina practiced for hours every day, sometimes in secret, sometimes with guidance from her teacher. She discovered that singing was not just about talent, it was also about discipline, focus, and dedication. Each practice session made her voice stronger and more expressive, and each small improvement filled her with pride. The shy, quiet girl who had once been afraid to sing in front of anyone was now transforming into a confident performer. Opportunities started to come her way. Mrs. Karim suggested that Amina perform at school events, local community gatherings, and even charity programs. Each time she sang in front of an audience, her confidence grew. She realized that her voice had the power to connect with people, to bring joy and inspiration, and to convey emotions that words alone could not express. Every performance, no matter how small, was a step forward, helping her build both skill and courage. Amina began to understand that her talent could be more than a personal joy. It could also touch the lives of others in meaningful ways. Despite the newfound recognition, Amina remained humble and grounded. She never let praise or attention make her feel superior to others. Instead, she focused on improving her skills, helping her classmates, and being kind to everyone around her. She remembered how it felt to be ignored and underestimated, and she wanted to ensure that others felt included and supported. Her humility and kindness only made people respect her more, and she quickly became a role model for students who admired her courage, talent, and gentle spirit. One day, a local music academy heard about Amina and invited her for an audition. The thought of performing in front of professional instructors made her nervous, but Mrs. Karim encouraged her, saying, "This is an opportunity for you, Amina. You've worked hard, and now it's time to show them what you can do." With her family's blessing and the guidance of her teacher, Amina prepared for the audition with determination and focus. She practiced diligently, learning to express emotion in every note and to convey her story through music. The day of the audition, she walked in with confidence, holding her head high, ready to share her gift with a new audience. The audition was a success. The instructors were impressed by her natural talent, her control, and the emotional depth of her singing. They offered her a place in the academy, along with a scholarship to help cover the costs. Amina could hardly believe it. Her dream of receiving formal training, something she had thought was impossible, was now becoming reality. The joy she felt was indescribable, and she knew that this was only the beginning of her journey. Her life, once filled with quiet struggles and overlooked moments, was opening up to possibilities she had never imagined. As Amina continued to grow in skill and confidence, her influence on those around her expanded as well. Younger students looked up to her, inspired by her courage to step into the spotlight despite fear and teasing. Teachers praised her dedication and her humility. Her classmates, even those who had once doubted her, now admired her not just for her talent but for the grace and kindness with which she carried herself. Amina's story became a source of inspiration in the school, a reminder that talent could emerge from the most unexpected places and that courage could overcome fear and ridicule. Through all these changes, Amina remained deeply connected to her family and her roots. She never forgot the struggles she had faced or the simple joys of singing quietly at home. Her experiences taught her to appreciate every moment, every opportunity, and every person who supported her. She learned that success was not just about recognition or awards, but about the journey, the growth, and the positive impact one could have on others. Amina's voice had brought her fame and admiration, but it had also brought her wisdom, humility, and a deeper understanding of herself. By the end of this chapter of her life, Amina had not only discovered her talent but also the power of determination, courage, and support from those who believed in her. She had transformed from the quiet, unnoticed girl who walked to school with worn-out shoes into a confident young singer ready to embrace new opportunities and challenges. Her journey had shown her that talent could shine in anyone, no matter their background, and that kindness, humility, and dedication were just as important as natural ability. Amina now looked forward to the future with hope, knowing that her voice had the power to inspire, uplift, and create change not just for herself, but for everyone who heard it. After her audition success and the scholarship to the music academy, Amina's life began to change in ways she had only dreamed of before. Every day now held new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities. At the academy, she met students from different towns and backgrounds, all with their own unique talents. At first, she felt nervous around them, wondering if she truly belonged. But as soon as she sang during practice sessions, her peers were captivated by her voice. The quiet girl from a poor background, who had once been overlooked, now earned respect and admiration from everyone around her. Amina's training at the academy was rigorous but rewarding. She learned not only about singing techniques, but also about stage presence, expression, and storytelling through music. Each lesson helped her grow, shaping her voice into something even more powerful and expressive. Sometimes, she struggled with challenging exercises or felt frustrated when she couldn't perfect a note immediately. But she remembered the courage she had shown during her first talent show performance. She reminded herself that perseverance was part of her journey, and that every small effort brought her closer to her dreams. Her family continued to be her greatest source of support. Her mother worked tirelessly to provide for them. Yet she always made time to listen to Amina practice and cheer her on. Her younger brother proudly watched his sister transform into someone stronger and more confident, often mimicking her notes and joining her in playful singing sessions at home. These moments reminded Amina of her roots and gave her the strength to push forward, no matter how busy or demanding her schedule became. She understood that her talent was not just for herself, it was a gift to share with her family and community as well. With her growing skills and confidence, Amina began performing at more public events. She sang at school celebrations, local festivals, and charity programs. Each performance brought her closer to her audience, connecting with them in ways words alone could not. People were drawn not only to her remarkable voice but also to the genuine emotion and sincerity she poured into every note. Amina discovered the joy of giving her talent to others, seeing how music could uplift, inspire, and bring happiness. These experiences taught her that her voice had the power to touch lives and make a positive impact beyond her own personal goals. As she performed more, Amina's reputation began to spread. People in her town and nearby areas heard about the girl whose voice could leave a room speechless. Invitations to perform at larger events started arriving, and some community leaders even encouraged her to consider recording her songs professionally. Amina felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She knew that with each opportunity came greater responsibility and higher expectations. But she also remembered the courage that had carried her through the talent show, and she trusted herself to face these new challenges with confidence and determination. Despite the attention and recognition, Amina remained humble. She never allowed fame or praise to change her character. She continued to help classmates, encouraged friends, and treated everyone with kindness and respect. She remembered how it felt to be ignored and underestimated, and she wanted to be a source of encouragement for others. Younger students often came to her for advice or guidance, and Amina gladly shared her experiences, teaching them that courage, practice, and perseverance could overcome fear and obstacles. Her humility and warmth only enhanced the admiration people felt for her, and she became a role model in her school and community. Amina also realized the importance of education alongside her music. She continued attending her regular school classes, studying diligently. She understood that knowledge could open doors and provide stability, complementing her artistic dreams. Her success in singing did not make her complacent. It motivated her to work even harder in all areas of her life. Teachers often praised her not just for her talent but also for her discipline, determination, and ability to balance multiple responsibilities. Amina was slowly becoming a well-rounded individual, admired not only for her extraordinary voice but also for her character and perseverance. As her skills developed, Amina began to compose her own songs. She drew inspiration from her life experiences, the struggles, the joy, the moments of doubt, and the courage she had found within herself. Her songs carried deep emotion and honesty, resonating with audiences in a way that felt personal and authentic. People often told her that her music made them reflect, dream, and feel hope. Amina realized that her gift was not just about performing but also about sharing a piece of her heart with others. She had transformed from a quiet girl hiding her talent into an artist capable of moving people with her music. One day, the Academy organized a large concert featuring its most promising students. Amina was invited to perform as one of the main acts. Standing backstage, she felt the familiar flutter of nerves, but she reminded herself of the courage that had carried her through her first public performance. When she stepped onto the stage and faced the audience, the same magic happened. The hall fell silent, and her voice commanded attention. Every note she sang told a story, filled with emotion and authenticity. The audience was mesmerized, applauding wildly when she finished. This performance cemented her reputation as a young artist with incredible potential. Amina's journey also inspired others in her community. Children who had been shy, insecure, or afraid to try new things looked up to her and began pursuing their own talents. Teachers noticed a positive change in students' attitudes, with more of them taking courage to explore music, arts, and other creative activities. Amina had become a symbol of hope and perseverance, a reminder that even the quietest, most overlooked individuals could achieve greatness with dedication and courage. Despite her growing fame and opportunities, Amina remained deeply connected to her family and roots. She never forgot the small home where she had practiced her first songs, the mother who encouraged her, or the younger brother who had always believed in her. Every achievement she earned was shared with them, and their pride and support fueled her determination to keep going. She knew that her journey was not just about personal success, it was about giving back, inspiring others, and making a difference with the gift she had been given. As the years passed, Amina continued to grow, both as an artist and as a person. She participated in national competitions, won awards for her singing, and received invitations to perform at significant events. Yet, she remained grounded, humble, and kind. Her story of courage, perseverance, and talent spread beyond her town, inspiring countless others who faced challenges or felt overlooked. People admired her not just for her beautiful voice, but for her resilience, her character, and the way she overcame obstacles to achieve her dreams. Through all her experiences, Amina never forgot the lesson she had learned from the talent show, the lesson that courage, passion, and perseverance could overcome fear and ridicule. She realized that talent alone was not enough. It needed to be nurtured with dedication, practice, and heart. Her journey from the quiet, unnoticed girl to a celebrated young singer had taught her the importance of believing in herself, embracing opportunities, and remaining humble while sharing her gift with the world. In the end, Amina's story became more than just about singing. It became a story of hope, resilience, and the power of believing in one's dreams. She had faced ridicule, fear, and doubt, yet she emerged stronger, confident, and full of purpose. Her voice had opened doors, touched hearts, and inspired others to believe in their own potential. Amina had transformed her life through talent, courage, and determination, proving that no matter where someone comes from, they can achieve greatness if they dare to try. Amina continued to pursue her dreams, always remembering the shy girl who had once walked unnoticed through the school hallways. Her journey reminded her that the greatest victories are not just in recognition or applause, but in the courage to embrace one's true self and the determination to never give up. And as she sang, sharing her heart with the world, Amina knew that this was only the beginning of a life filled with music, joy, and endless possibilities.